Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. And today I wanted to go over the Star Citizen Live Q&A about cargo missions. Now, CAG was supposed to have a video going through the actual cargo mission, but apparently there was some technical difficulty, or they didn't have it in a state that they were ready to show the backers, so they decided to do a Q&A instead. In my opinion, this is a bit unfortunate because I was really looking forward to them just running through a mission from beginning to end. But it seems like we're going to have to wait a little bit longer until that feature goes to PTU or uh, first wave. Um, but in my opinion, that's uh, not looking good for 324 for the patch. Realistically speaking, Evocati has had the patch for about 2 weeks now. I don't know if that's typical. I did have, estimated that maybe 324 would come out around mid-July. It is now the 16th as of recording this video. So I do hope that whatever issues that they have with the patch, they're able to work on them and get it out pretty fast. Again, July is halfway through now, so we want to see as much progress as possible. But what I'm going to do in this video is go over the questions that was asked and answers, and kind of condense it down into a bit of a shorter form video. The original video that aired was about an hour and a few minutes long. You can see it here. So I'm this video is probably gonna be like 20, 30 minutes. So we're gonna go through that real quick. I'm gonna go through the questions just so you guys can have it in a bit of a shorter form, just to get to cut through everything and just get the answers about these cargo missions straight to you guys. So I'm just gonna have the original video playing in the background if you guys are watching this on your computer or something. uh I'll have the original live stream playing in the background with the audio off so you guys can hear me talking and going over the questions. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. Alright, so to kick things off, the first question that was asked is what kinds of containers will hauling missions use and how can we see that? Okay, so the containers that these hauling missions are gonna use are variable. So I think this question was asking in relationship to the size. Is it going to be all one SCU cargo containers? And that will depend on the kind of mission. So you will have different missions varying depending on the size. Like if it is a kind of medium quantity, what Evocati is seeing right now is that CIG's definition of a medium kind of cargo mission is very large, roughly 70 to 300 SCU in cargo. This is probably going to need to be balanced. I think a lot of people, when they are thinking of small, medium, and large cargo missions, they're thinking of small, medium, and large ships. So a ship that is essentially like the Hull A or Nomad. They're thinking cargo missions that range between, 6 and maybe 40 SCU. 6 and maybe 48 SCU of cargo, and then maybe medium is 48 to like 150, and then large is like 150 to 300. And then extra large is like 300 all the way up to whatever, the Banu merchantman and those types of ships will be able to hold. So again, the system's going to need some balancing. CIG's going to need to take a look at that, but strictly speaking, the mission will determine the size of the box. You might get, two 8 SU boxes, two 16 SU boxes. We don't know. The system generates that. Okay, the next question was, can we pick the size of the cargo box hauling missions will spawn? Again, this question is a no. The mission will determine the size of the boxes that the hauling missions will have. And the next question is, can we use our own commodities or commodities we found to complete these missions? And again, the answer was no. These cargo boxes are essentially determined by the company. So the company has already purchased these items. You just need to deliver it. So it's like Amazon. If your package gets lost, you can't just replace it with, the same item. Technically speaking, that is possible. Some vendors do that for customers. If a package got lost, what they will do is they will send out another item, insured or whatever. If that is the situation of the delivery, um, but for these specific missions, CIG wants to separate it with future missions that they might have, where a company contracts a player to go get this type of commodity. Let's say a company needs iron to be mined. They will put a contract saying they need X amount of iron to be delivered by this time, and a player will go mine the iron, bring it to the refinery, refine it or whatever, and then deliver that to the location. So that will be a separate kind of mission. These delivery missions are strictly go to point A, pick up the cargo container, put in your ship, drop it off. They're essentially like the personal box missions, but just for larger cargo. How will players earn reputation and progress in the hauling missions in the guild? Well, right now it will essentially utilize the same, reputation system that all other missions have, and they will have specific, mission givers or companies like, the shipping companies in the game now, Covalex, what have you, and you will just essentially earn reputation with these companies. And apparently there will be perks at the higher levels, but that won't be in the first iteration. Okay. Users not wanting more missions over emergent opportunities. Now, this was a pretty good question because I talked about this in one of my recent videos comparing, sandbox gameplay to, theme park gameplay. And I think the way that CIG wants to design these missions is that it is kind of for that entry into the content. And what I've said about this before, in a good way for CIG to make the universe, the world to immerse players, is to have, PvE content for every game loop at the entry level. And then once you've done that, once you've experienced that, then you can dip your feet into the emergent gameplay. So essentially, if you have a refueling contract, you'll be able to refuel NPCs. If there are repair ships, you'll be able to repair NPC ships. If there is piracy, pirates will be able to pirate NPC ships. So in every area of gameplay for every career, there should be some type of PvE content so that, in the lack of players, for new people who are being introduced to the career, to the gameplay loop, to the ship, whatever, they have content there. And one of the biggest things why, salvage is, so popular, so dynamic, as well as mining and trading, is because you don't really need that interaction. A lot of pirates, what they're seeing, and I saw this on Summit 1G streams, is that there's a lot of waiting. You have to wait for players to engage with them. There's nothing to do if the players aren't there for that content. And in that way, CIG could fill in the gaps with PvE content. So I think that's kind of the idea with these missions, is that they can introduce players to the cargo gameplay loop, to the hangars, the cargo elevators, that entire process, and then they can build up the real in-game skills they need to accomplish those things. Okay. Alternative forms of cargo like vehicles, data, time-sensitive hazardous materials still on the cards. Yes, I think this is things that they're still planning for, but the way they said it is that they will not come with this initial iteration. Things like data running is kind of its own beast, and I think they want to create its own gameplay loop around that. So it's not going to be a situation where data running is kind of lumped in with these cargo missions. That will kind of be its own beast, because again, at the end of the day, you're supposed to need ships like the Herald and the MSR to take advantage of those missions. So they will need to make them unique enough where those ships have something, again, unique that can carry that data, and it's not just, a box. The data is not just like a black box that you can put on any ship. It has to be, something that, the Herald and the MSR can really take advantage of. Will hauling missions or any missions make use of ground vehicles? Again, this is something that I think they want to do in the future, but I think this is something that personally will need to wait on roads. CAG has talked about adding roads for a long time, and if you're going to make a hauling mission that is dedicated to ground vehicles, let's say from Laurelville to one of the outposts, or from a distribution center to another distribution center, you really need to create a defined gameplay loop for that. Like, what is the benefit of using purely a ground vehicle over a ship? And you need to keep that gameplay on the ground and have a reason for that gameplay to be on the ground. So I think that's definitely not going to be in this the first few iterations. That's probably going to be a much later date. Again, I think CIG's in the mindset where they want to have, specific reasons for these gameplay loops to be in place, at least before they introduce them. Cargo is big. Would you ever consider very small items you can carry on you that can't be seen by others? And again, this is kind of just like the personal, cargo box delivery missions. This cargo mission gameplay loop is really just for, the large cargo containers type stuff. Player contracts and job boards. Will players be able to set up contracts to have cargo or items hauled by other players? This is something that I think they want to do in the future, not with this initial iteration. But, there's a lot of stuff that CIG wants to do down the line. At the end of the day, it comes down to priorities and, what dev time they can have allocated for certain things. And I think it is important to get those building blocks in place first, to actually get the system in place, the effort versus reward system that they're building out now for these cargo missions, the hangars, the cargo elevators. This tech needs to be in place before they start building on top of it. So I think that, obviously their priority is to get this first iteration out and then kind of move on to other things, and then maybe come back to stuff like that. Okay, dynamic mission spawned by background simulation. Is that still a thing? Yes, that's still in the cards. It's one of those things that I think that obviously is, it's waiting on the quantum simulation. It's waiting on, what they're calling it now, Star Sim. So this stuff being spawned by NPCs and whatnot, not in the first iteration, not in this iteration, somewhere down the line. What happens to hauling missions that nobody takes? So I think what they said was there is a time limit. I think Elliot said like 16 minutes or something like that. But essentially, if no one takes these missions, they just go away. I think this is a bad move. I don't think this makes sense. I think what CIG should do, like, the way I feel like they have missions spawning in the game right now, I feel like they're just being way too stingy. It's like, give us missions. I should go to the mission contract board and see like 50 or 60 missions in there. Easy. There's no reason for me to go in there and see like 4 or 5 or 6 or 10. Just spawn as many missions as absolutely possible. Again, this is supposed to be a star system. You look at a planet like ArchCorp. That planet probably has like, 100 billion people on it. How is there only like 10 missions? It doesn't make any sense. So I think CIG should just make as many missions as possible. Make room for this game expanding. Right now, one server is 100 people, but the end goal obviously is to have thousands of people on a single, instance of the game, whether it be instant or pyro. So those people are going to need a lot more content. So spawn as many as you can. I think that CIG shouldn't worry about, despawning these missions. Just keep them up there until somebody takes them. Realistically, you know, they should have a maybe like an 8-hour window where the mission goes away. Give players enough time to take it, put as many missions in as possible. The player base is growing. That's what we need. Okay, will we get missions in landing zones? So what they want to do is they eventually want to bring that back, but apparently there was a bug with the spawn rate. So what happened was that people were getting ships, people were getting armor, people were doing different things, and that was essentially slowing everything down on the back end. So what happened was that the missions became very unstable in landing zones. So what they want to do is they want to optimize landing zones first. And I think this is why they're moving towards these like instance hangars, or well, the persistence hangars, but the hangars are not in the same game world as the landing zone anymore. You're essentially kind of like streamed out, and that gives you the chance to stay in the hangar longer. And so I think what they want to do moving forward is have these like isolated areas, like maybe they can take an entire building and make that one server, and it's separate from the rest of the landing zone. So what you're doing in that scenario is when you're going from one building to another building, you're going from like one server or one instance to another one. And so people in the spaceport aren't really affecting the performance of your mission. Because again, what's happening right now is that when you're doing those missions, they're not completed. So you go and you try to deliver the box or whatever, and the mission is broken. So they want to fix that. Elliot says that that's something that he wants to work on and fix eventually. But yeah, that's not going to be in this iteration. Okay, so they were also asking about the auto loading being broken, and basically, the issue is that it is taking very long for the autoloader, and there are issues with the way the autoloader is working. Again, Evo Cardi, the way they're looking at it is that the time it takes to load the same quantity of one SU boxes is the same time it takes to load like a 16 SU box, and that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And as well, it's like 5 hours to load. So there are certain issues with the auto loading that I think that they want to fix, that it's their priority right now, what they're working on getting that working. But the system, they do want to add more things to it, but that's I think one of the things that's kind of holding this patch back a little bit right now, is that they want to fix the autoloader. So they basically said that they have people working on that, and they'll see if they can get it fixed. Why not use a big Hercules and chain smaller missions? Why use a smaller ship? And basically what CIG says that you can. If a Hercules is all you have, you can use a Hercules to do these smaller missions. But what they wanted to do is give players who have a Hull A, who have a Nomad, the ability to complete these, to have missions, to have content. Again, the whole kind of point of these cargo missions is to introduce players to the cargo gameplay loop, to trading essentially. And if you have a C2, you're going to make more profit from trading than doing cargo missions. You can do the cargo missions if you want to. Let's say you're bored one day and you just want to pick up a mission real quick after work and play that gameplay loop for a while. That's fine. You can absolutely do that. But if you want to make the most amount of money, trading is probably going to be the way to go for you, because again, you're going to have to progress through the loop. I'm on the fence about this because I think that all players are going to want that progression. Okay. But at the end of the day, you might have to wait for the next iteration of these missions where companies just contract players out. So say, hey, I need, 100 SCU of gold. And then you go and buy that. I think in that scenario, those types of missions are more geared towards those C2 pilots right out of the gate, because they can take their mining ship, they can refine it, then they can take their cargo ship, get that stuff, deliver it, XYZ. So I think that for now, that these are just more like an introductory to the cargo trading profession. They want to give people with smaller ships an opportunity to really use those ships, because again, at the end of the day, those smaller cargo ships are not big money makers in the game, and a lot of people aren't using it the way CIG want them to, and CIG wants to give those ships more gameplay. But at the end of the day, you can use your larger ship. Okay, effort versus reward. Why is the new being talked about? Effort versus reward. Why is this new and being talked about now? Okay, so effort versus reward is not new. What CIG said is that many games have been using it for a long time, but they want to introduce it now because they want to build in that type of progression where they have and again, this is the reason why most players have been saying for a long time that this game does not have an economy. Is because this isn't something that they've been prioritizing in the past, but they are now. You would see missions in the past where the mission designers would determine the rewards for the content, but now the economy team is working with the mission content team to distribute all those rewards. So what they're essentially going to do is rebalance everything. And this is a multi-tiered process where they will go through different missions, different content, and balance them. So some content is going to get more rewards, some content is going to get less rewards. But they have an algorithm now that determines how much rewards, what the payout in aUEC for different content. And again, a good example in the past is like those bounty missions where, you would go up against a ship and it would have millions of aUEC worth of drugs on it. And that was kind of like the meta for a long time. That's very unbalanced. CIG doesn't want to do that moving forward. So what they want to do is essentially balance that out, have that tied into the algorithm, and then that will spawn the rewards that mission has on it. So they're going through everything, they're redoing everything to try to balance it. And it's important now because now they have personal hangars, they have the cargo elevators. So they're at a point where they have enough tech in place that players are playing for longer, players are engaging with the game more, the game is growing more. It's important to get the reward system right. How are you calculating time, and what are you taking into account? So basically what they're saying here is that if you want to, spend 30 minutes getting your armor, getting food, getting weapons, talking to your friends, you can do that. But you have to take into account that the faster you go, the more it's going to be worth your time. If you take longer, that's totally up to you. They're not really calculating what you're doing into the reward. They're just calculating the raw numbers, how long does it take to get from point A to point B. And I think that's a good thing, because in certain situations, if you have like a faster quantum drive, for instance, if you're boosting more, if you're flying right, if you're taking less time, then this content is more rewarding, that payout is more valuable. So if you're a player and you like to min-max things and that's the only kind of gameplay you enjoy, then great. If you're the kind of player who likes to loiter around, you like to take your time with it, you don't really care about the money, you're just doing it because it's fun, then that content is there for you. So there's room for both kinds of players in the gameplay. They're not accounting for that when they balance the missions. They're just kind of balancing it for kind of like the middle of the road. How long would it take the average player to do this? Like you go from from accepting the mission, you already have everything ready. So again, if you want to take 15 minutes to prepare, you do that before you accept the mission. Then when you accept the mission, you leave the hangar, you make a beeline to the location, you pick up the cargo. You're doing everything at a relatively decent pace. Okay. So the next question is, what breakfast do you get at McDonald's? And Elliot basically said that he gets two of those I believe it is sausage and egg McMuffins from McDonald's, and he doesn't like the hash browns. Elliot is not a hash brown guy. I mean, I'm glad I know that now. You know, nerfing mission payouts, salvage mission, and why do hauling missions pay so little compared to other types of missions? Basically, CAG said is don't look at the payouts right now. Okay, those will be balanced. And again, they're going through all of the content in the game, balancing everything with the effort versus reward system, this new algorithm. So a lot of things are changing. Follow-up question: why not wait until every mission payout has been balanced before updating the system? Well, at the end of the day, uh, they can't do everything all at once. They basically have to do it in kind of like parts. And I think the reason why this makes sense too is to be able to get feedback. At the end of the day, what they said before is that they want to get feedback from the community about what missions we think is valuable for what, and how those things can work out. So basically, yeah, they want to take the time and get it right. Okay, don't lower mission rewards and make prices higher, as that makes grind. Do you want grind? No, they don't want grind, but at the end of the day, they want content. They want players to be able to have things to do. They want players to be able to have things to engage with, reasons to go out and do things. And I've said this in previous videos. The progression needs to be built in there. Things need to feel like they're happening for players. This is for a little while gonna feel like a little bit grind. What they said is this is because that level of persistence is not really in there yet. What they want to do moving forward is reduce the amount of wipes that they do, so the game it feels like you have time to actually get things done and progress. Security while traveling, loading, unloading. Do you need to get friends to protect you? No, you don't need to, but that could help you. Uh, at the end of the day, I think personally for these missions, they're not going to be valuable. Strictly because the missions don't seem like they're going to pay out that much or pay out enough to split. But if you have friends, again, at the end of the day, you could do that. I personally, and again, this is just me speaking now, I personally don't think that that makes sense. I think the margin on trading is a lot better for security. The margin on hauling, in my opinion, is not all there yet. Okay, Elliot, for miners, will there be missions to sell what we mine to resource centers to be hauled away by players for hauling missions? Yes, in the future, eventually. They kind of talked about that earlier, but not in the initial iteration. Express delivery missions, please. Yes, possibly in the future. Why is it taking so long to get these hauling missions into the game? Again, uh, they wanted to wait until they had hangars, cargo elevators, and the new inventory system in place. They didn't want to bring it in before they had all of the tools and the systems and the technology to make it feel really good. So that's why that took longer. That's why they're doing it now. What do freight elevators mean for future missions? They mean a whole lot, because freight elevators at the end of the day is going to be the new inventory system. This is going to be how you interact with the storage at locations, the storage at landing zones, the storage at space stations. So moving forward, this kind of magical inventory system that we have now, where boxes just magically spawn on your ship, where you can move things over. That's kind of going the way of the dodo bird. And the new wave is these elevators. Okay. Ask Elliot if he's ever going to fix box missions. Elliot basically says no, he is not. Box missions are fine. Box missions are perfect. Box missions are good. Anybody who says that box missions are broken, they're lying. It is propaganda, false news. He said basically that he's gonna get around to it at some point. But again, it's just being able to allocate resources for that. And right now they have certain priorities, certain directives that they need to tackle first. So that was everything from Star Citizen Live Q&A for cargo missions. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me. This video ran a little bit longer than I was expecting it to. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you do want to still go and watch the original video, it was very funny. They always have fun over there at CIG. It was a good video to watch. I was disappointed that they weren't able to play through an actual cargo mission, but the Q&A is still always a welcomed video to be able to watch and get the questions answered. So yeah, thanks for hanging out with me again, you guys. I always appreciate your support on these videos. And like I always say at the end of these videos, you guys, like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you guys in the next one. Salut!